What's going on YouTube? This is Raptor Ruckus, and what I have here is my 2007 Raptor 700. So in today's video, we're talking about power modifications you can do to your very own Raptor 700. This not only includes the popular big three, but a total of 6 power modifications you can do to your Yamaha Raptor 700 to make some serious horsepower. Now, straight off the factory floor, the Raptor 700 is no slouch. This machine comes stock with a massive 102 millimeter diameter piston, which is paired with 84 millimeters of stroke, and that creates 686 cubic centimeters of displacement. Stock horsepower for this machine normally makes about 43 to 44 wheel horsepower on most dynos. To be honest, that's plenty of power to have a lot of fun, but if you're like most motorsports enthusiasts, you need more power. So if you are one of those who's looking for more power out of your stock Raptor 700, here are 6 modifications you can do to your machine to increase your power output. Now to kick it off, this is the first modification that you should do to your Raptor 700, and it is important that you actually do this one first before any else. And we have here under the seat a fuel programmer. So you may be wondering, why start off with a fuel programmer first? I mean, there's a lot more exciting modifications you can do, like an exhaust or an intake, but it is, again, very important that you start off with the fuel programmer. Now, the reason being is because once you do add an aftermarket intake or performance exhaust, you're going to be adding additional airflow into the engine. What that's going to cause is a lean condition if you don't add additional fuel to that mixture. So once you pick up one of these, you can upload a map that supports your modifications and make sure that you're running the proper air to fuel ratio. Even in stock form, the Raptor tends to run lean. So again, this is the very first modification I would recommend that you do to your Raptor 700, a fuel programmer. So the unit I'm running on my Raptor is the Dynajet Power Commander 3. Now I realize that this is a very dated unit. They don't even make these anymore. Since then, Dynajet has came out with the Power Commander 5 and Power Commander 6, which has some additional bells and whistles. Although I have no complaints from the Power Commander 3. This has been a great programmer for my machine. I've never had any hiccups or issues with it. I'm really happy with the map I'm running. I think it supports my engine modifications really well. So again, this is the Power Commander 3. If you're looking for some other brands, I know Big Gun, they make the, I believe it's called the Juice Box, and then HMF has their own fuel programmer as well. So again, make sure that you pick up a fuel programmer as your first modification. All right, enough about the fuel programmer. You have that all set with the proper tune. Let's talk about our next modification on our list, which is aftermarket exhaust. So the first and obvious reason to get an aftermarket exhaust system is because the stock system is far too quiet. Of course, Yamaha, they have to comply with noise regulations as well as emission standards. So they're pretty limited on what they can do with their stock system. With an aftermarket exhaust system, you can really express your personality. What's cool about the Raptor 700 is that there's plenty of brands that offers a bunch of different tones as well as looks and styles. So you can really dial in, the tone that you're looking for when it comes to your exhaust system. So not only your Raptor is going to sound great with an aftermarket exhaust system, but you're also able to add horsepower. As we talked about, the Raptor 700 has a rather large displacement engine, nearly 700 cc's of displacement. With that being said, it's really important that this big motor is able to breathe effectively. With an aftermarket exhaust system, the engine is able to inhale and exhale air a lot more efficiently. Of course, the more airflow you have with the proper tune, you're able to make more horsepower. Now, when it comes to choosing an exhaust system, one of my recommendations is to make sure to choose a full exhaust system that comes with both the header pipes as well as the mufflers. Of course, it may be tempting to buy a slip-on pipe, which adds a little bit of performance, adds the sound at a cheaper price, but you will be robbing yourself of some horsepower. So the exhaust system I am running is the Big Gun Evo R dual exhaust. I've been running this exhaust system for the last 6 to 7 years. It's been really great, really no complaints. I like the sound of the system. It's not very raspy, it has more of a deep throaty tone to it. When it comes to budget, I would say this is a mid-tier exhaust system. Definitely adds a good amount of mid and upper end torque and horsepower. If you are looking for peak horsepower, there are some slightly better exhaust systems out there, such as Barker, Empire, DMCs, that will give you some better horsepower numbers. But yeah, I've been really impressed with this Big Gun exhaust system. Now my Raptor is an 07, so it has the dual port exhaust design out of the head, which is really cool because then I can run 2 separate exhaust pipes, which I think definitely helps with flow. For the headers, they are 304 stainless steel and still looking great, even after being rode hard for several years. Unfortunately, I did have a crack show up in my exhaust mount. You can see it there. But Big Gun is a great company to work with. They were able to hook me up with these brand new black powder coated pipes as a replacement. So a big shout out to Big Gun. They were very reasonable on the price of these replacement pipes. Highly recommend their company. So now your Raptor is properly tuned with a fuel programmer. Your bike is sounding awesome with some aftermarket exhaust. The next modification on my list is an intake. Now most of us know that the Raptor 700 in stock form is pretty restrictive from the factory. And of course that's to comply with emission standards. But if you're looking to increase your horsepower, you really need to increase your airflow, and that can be done with an aftermarket intake system. What I have here is the Fuel Customs intake system, or FCI for short. I believe this is one of the best intake systems on the market. Not only it comes with this massive air filter, but it also comes with this increased diameter tube to really increase the amount of airflow to your engine. With mine, I have it with the box here to keep the air filter dry, but FCI sells this intake system without the box if you're looking for maximum airflow. So again, the second modification I would recommend is an aftermarket intake. And again, I'm a big fan of the Fuel Customs intake system. So there you have it. Those are the first 3 modifications you would want to do to your Raptor 700. Again, that is the fuel programmer, aftermarket exhaust, as well as an aftermarket intake. Now that your Raptor is able to breathe a lot better and you have the proper tune, your Raptor should be making between 50 to 55 horsepower, which is great. But if you want to take it to the next level, here are 3 additional modifications you can do to your Raptor 700. Alright, we're going to have to start digging into this Raptor 700 engine to unlock more horsepower, which takes me to our next modification, aftermarket cam. So what we're looking at here is the cam sprocket as well as the decompression valve. The Raptor 700 cam is hiding behind that. But just a little bit of cam 101, the basics here. What a camshaft does is it provides lift and duration for your exhaust and intake valves. So lift is how far does the valve open into the cylinder, and then duration is how long does the valve stay open. With an aftermarket cam, you can increase both lift and duration of your valves. What that achieves is your engine is pulling in more air, more fuel for more combustion. And of course that creates more power. Now the cam that I'm running is the Hot Cams Stage 3. I initially started out with the Stage 2 Hot Cam. It was good. I wasn't really too impressed, but I did notice a pretty big difference jumping up to the 3. Now with the stage 3 hot cam, you do lose just a little of bottom end power, but it's not really noticeable. However, you really do notice what the Raptor really needs, which is more top end power. So in stock form, the Raptor tends to kind of fall flat on its face. In the upper RPMs, if you're winding out 4th or 5th gear, you kind of get stuck in mid RPM. But with the help of an aftermarket cam, such as the Stage 3 hot cam, your Raptor will pull much harder in the upper RPMs. So that is the 4th modification, is a aftermarket cam. And next modification on our list is hiding behind our cylinder, and that is a high compression piston. So the goal of a high compression piston is not only to increase your peak horsepower, but also to broaden the overall power curve. With a high compression piston, not only do you add additional torque down low, but you also add additional horsepower up top, overall making the Raptor 700 engine perform better across all of the RPM. Now the piston I'm running in my Raptor is a CP 11:1 compression ratio. With this piston, it does give you a nice bump up in power across the entire RPM range, while still able to pump 93 octane fuel. Now if you start to go beyond 11:1 compression, such as 12:1 or 12.5:1, yes, you will make more horsepower, but you will have to start running some race fuel to avoid a condition called pre-detonation, which you don't want to do that because that can definitely damage your engine. So that is the 5th modification, which is a high compression piston. Now before we talk about the final modification, this is definitely an honorable mention, and that's a temperature gauge. Anytime you start doing modifications to your Raptor 700, it's always a good idea to keep an eye on your engine temperature. Typically the Raptor likes to run anywhere between 190 to 215 or so. If you start running beyond 215, if that fan is working hard, you know that you may be running a bit lean. So honorable mention to the temperature gauge. Alright, so we made it to our 6th and final modification on my list to do to your Raptor 700, which is a 2-for-1. It is head porting as well as a bored out throttle body. So the goal of head porting is to bring those other modifications together in unity. You could have a good performing exhaust system, you can have a great intake, but if you have a bottleneck in flow through your engine head, you're not going to achieve maximum horsepower. Now when it comes to those other 5 modifications, I felt pretty comfortable doing those on my own, even rebuilding the top end or replacing the cam. Of course, the Raptor manual is a big help, but when it comes to porting the head, that is definitely an art and beyond my pay grade. So I sent my head off to Quavo Racing. He does great work on Raptor 700 heads, and the package I got with mine, I stuck with the stock valves, so I still have the same valves, but they were cleaned up. But he did do a nice port job on it, and I definitely noticed a pretty big increase in horsepower, especially towards, again, that top range where the Raptor tends to lag in stock form. To complement the ported head, he also bored out my throttle body. He increased the bore by 3 millimeters. I believe it's 47 millimeters, stock is 44. And with that, again, everything is just able to flow really well all together. So that is the last and final modification, is head porting as well as a bored out throttle body. So that's a wrap on 6 modifications you can do to your Yamaha Raptor to make some serious horsepower. With these 6 mods, you should be making in the mid 60s or even knocking on the door of 70 horsepower if done right. I think my next move would be a stroker crank. So I'm still rocking the stock crankshaft. It's got a ton of hours on it. So I think a +5 or +6 mil crank would be a nice addition to my setup. Of course, I just want to say thank you for watching my video. I hope to see you out on the trails, and God bless.